Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your host, Erin Summers.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers. The Saints were back on the field Friday, day 8 of training camp. NFL Network analyst Gregg Rosenthal will join me after I break down the news of the day, what happened during practice. The pads were back on. Defensive lineman Brian Brzee returned. Wide receivers Marquez Callaway, yes, Marquez Callaway, who we have seen here with the Saints previously, and Samson Nacua both participated in practice after being picked up Wednesday and Friday. Quarterback Nathan Peterman's contract was terminated, and tight end Tommy Hudson was waived after getting injured earlier this week, so those two players were not on the field. The refs, however, were out on the field and at practice today for the entire time. It's the first time that we've seen the refs at training camp. They do this every year just to try to give the players an idea of how things are called. Head coach Dennis Allen said he told the refs to call everything they saw.
Yeah. Look, this was the first day to have them out here, and and I told them anything that they would call in a regular season game, I want to see the yellow on the film. So I wanted them to throw the flag as many times as they felt like there was a foul that occurred. It's the only way that we get an opportunity to coach our guys. So you get out here and there's no officiating, and you're still trying to coach up those things, and yet, I don't know that the full impact of it really, takes place until all of a sudden they start seeing, these yellow hankies on the field, and they start to realize how that's hurting the football team. And so, it was good to have those guys out here, and they'll be out here for the next couple of days. I think they're out here Saturday and Sunday, so we'll take full advantage of utilizing that to help educate our players and get better in that way.
While the defense still seems to be holding the upper hand in practices this week, the offense definitely stepped up Friday with some great plays by both backup quarterbacks during teams. The team worked in the red zone for the first time this camp. Jake Haener called a quarterback sneak and ran it in about 8 yards untouched for a score. Haener also hit tight end Michael Jacobson as Jacobson was heading out of bounds, falling towards the sideline around the goal line area. Jacobson extended his hands over the pylon on the right side after the catch to grab the touchdown. Spencer Rattler hit Dallin Holker, another tight end, for a 7-yard touchdown at the back of the end zone just above the defender's arms. Holker jumped up to grab the ball. Literally couldn't have been a better throw. Rattler has continued to progress throughout camp and is making some really big strides. Running back Alvin Kamara had some good catches in play action, helping quarterback Derek Carr get out of trouble a few times. Kamara is definitely their number one option here as an RB, and he seems to be a few steps ahead of everybody else in that room. Cornerback Alontae Taylor has had a really good week of camp. We talked about him in the last pod. His battles with wide receiver Chris Olave have been some of the best parts of practice to watch every day, and they went at it again today. It was a little more even. Olave did catch a few more on him. Taylor spoke with the media today for the first time at this camp, and it was a great listen.
I think last year I was kind of back and forth, trying to figure out if I'm going to buy into playing a nickel or if I really just want to be a corner, and just kind of figuring that part out. But now, like I said, my mentality is just put it all together. And if I'm going to play the nickel, then I'm going to be the best nickel I can possibly be. If I'm going to play outside, I'm going to be the best outside corner I can be. But, Coach Woods is doing a really good job. We kind of have night meetings to where we touch those small points maybe that we don't think about or we talk about in the special or actually in the DB meeting. So it's great. I'm having fun with it. I'm enjoying it, and I'm not so much indecisive on, do I want to be a nickel, do I want to be challenging?
Look, I think the number one thing I've seen out of Alontae is a want to and a willingness to do the job that we're asking him to do. And I think, that's one of those things where, look, there's a lot of noise outside the building as to, should you be a slot corner or an outside corner? What's a slot corner get paid, what's an outside corner get paid, blah, 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 all this BS. And it's like, look, just go and make plays, you know, and if you do that, everything kind of takes care of itself. And so I think that's something that he's really embraced this season. He's embraced that role as the slot corner. There's still some things that he's got to improve on, but if you just said, you know, what we're practice number 8 into training camp and where we're at now in practice number 8 compared to where we were last year at practice number 8, I think he's leaps and bounds ahead of where he was last year. And look, I see a guy that's, you know, highly competitive and wants to, you know, take that next step and you know, be an elite, not an elite slot corner, not an elite outside corner, but an elite player in our league. And I think the thing I've been most impressed with is his mindset.
Taylor has stood out to me throughout camp, not only in the way that he's performing, but how vocal he's been in helping out the other corners or other players on the defense in general. He's been especially helpful when it comes to rookie cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's just started really working with the team during this training camp session because he was coming back from an injury basically during the entire draft process and the beginning of the summer, missed rookie mini camp and OTAs. Taylor is doing a really good job helping to bring him along, and it definitely seems like Taylor's stepping into this year with just a different attitude, more confidence, and more comfort in his role.
When I got drafted here, a lot of my friends and family was like, oh my gosh, so you got to go play with Tyron Matthew. And I mean, I knew it was a big thing, but I didn't really know how big of a thing it was. But Tyron's taught me so much, man, from, you know, coming in, being a leader at Tennessee, then coming to the NFL. I didn't want to try to step into a leadership role. Like, I'm a rookie. I haven't really made my way. But Tyron's taught me how to become a better leader for myself, but also for the DB room. And I feel like that's why I'm kind of starting to take over that leadership role. Not take over, but add into that leadership role in the DB room. But Tyron's elite in all areas, off the field, on the field. Like I said, he's been through so much as a person. So it's great, and I don't take it for granted.
As mentioned at the top of the show, NFL Network was on hand at practice again, talking to players, covering things out here in Irvine. Bridget Condon joined me on the Your View show, and Gregg Rosenthal and I caught up after practice. Rosenthal went to Tulane, but has been living on the West Coast and working at the NFL Network since 2012. Gregg, thank you so much for joining me on the New Orleans Saints podcast. We're here in sunny Southern California and not in New Orleans, and I'm sure you wish that you could have made a return to New Orleans, huh?
I do. You are living out one of my dreams as a young man, which was to go back to New Orleans and work in sports. It didn't work out for me, so I'm jealous of you. But not really jealous of being in Metairie in early August.
We definitely lucked out as far as the weather is concerned, even though it was a little bit hotter today. Things have been going well here in Irvine. You've been making the rounds, seeing some of the other different training camps. How does the Saints compare to other places that you've watched?
Well, the first thing you notice is just having no fans here is different. Mm-hmm. So that's a different atmosphere. You got to get the energy from the players. Obviously, the defense is bringing a lot of energy. I think at this practice Friday, the offense was getting their plays in too and barking back. So I think you need that, but it's obviously chill and a lot of space and beautiful. And yeah, I think the defense kind of stood out, but that's pretty typical. I would say to Saints fans, I know there's some that freak out when they see the defense is winning day after day. It's pretty common, I would say, around the league. It wasn't common when you got Matthew Stafford at quarterback, but for instance, I was at the Chargers earlier this week, and it was the same story, that Chargers defense winning play after play after play.
It does seem like the defense starts faster during training camps, but especially here with the Saints implementing a new offense, it seems like it's going to take a little while for things to click and really look smooth, I think.
Yes, and you're talking about a defense that has new players, but Dennis Allen has been here, 6, 7? I mean, this is should be one of the most cohesive defenses in the league. Has more talent, I think, on that side of the ball, and you're installing a new scheme. But I think they had to install a new scheme. I think this is the scheme that you want. Clint Kubiak, I've been impressed with at all of his previous spots. And so we talked with Dennis Allen today on NFL Network, and I think he said it. I think the team is going to go how the O-line and D-line go, but I'm confident in that D-line as long as they're healthy. It's the offensive line, to me, that is the key to this entire team. If they can make that work, then this team has a chance to do really good things.
It's almost like two rookies starting on either ends there, because Trevor Penning was hurt his first year and then didn't really find a fitting on the O-line last season. So he's in a new position. Taliese Fuaga comes in and immediately moves to the other side. How difficult is it to be productive, to hit the ground running with an O-line that is young and getting some new guys in different positions?
Yeah, and even at the guard positions, there are some questions here. So it's difficult. Trevor Penning is a great example of how tough it is for tackles to come in and be difference makers right away. I look at some of the contracts that were signed recently at the tackle position, players that are now among the very best in the league. Taylor Decker comes to mind. Andrew Thomas of the Giants comes to mind. And they struggled as rookies, like straight up struggled, where people thought, ooh, I don't know if this is going to work out. Now, Fuaga, I'm hearing really good things. He has the movement skills. I think he's going to be great in the running game. I don't think he's going to need some big ramp up, but obviously you worry that he's pass protecting for Derek Carr's blind side, and that'll be the question, whether he can do that, whether Penning can do that. And I think the scheme should help out the offensive line in terms of getting rid of the ball quickly, getting guys open quickly.
Kubiak comes in with some experience, obviously, and a few different successful offenses, but now he's the OC again. Why do you think that it's going to be different?
Well, the last name helps. I got to admit, it's like a Nepo baby situation here, but like when your dad is Gary Kubiak and is one of, to me, the best offensive minds of the last 25 years, and I've seen how that offense has worked, and then he coaches with Kyle Shanahan a year ago, and I think he did a great job in Minnesota in 21. I believe it was 21 or 22. Like, that was Justin Jefferson's breakout year, and that team went 9-7. I know the coaching staff changed there, but it wasn't because of their offense. I think it's just been proven that this is a scheme that works and that you're going to tailor it to the players that you have. I'm not worried about the scheme. To me, it's more about the depth. It's about, if you have an injury or two, is this offensive line, is the running back room, is the wide receiver room going to be okay? Because I like the top level guys, Shaheed, Olave, Alvin Kamara. Like, they're going to be great, and I think the scheme's going to work. It's just, is there the depth that most playoff teams need to have?
You had a chance to talk to Chris Olave. I saw him on set here with you. What stood out to you from his conversation?
Well, he's a SoCal guy. He's so chill. You're always trying to get like a big reaction out of guys, and he's just like, he's chilling. But it makes sense because it's something living out here that, man, you just like, I worry about that with my own kids. Like, I want them to have some ups and downs. I don't want them to be that chill. But no, he's one of my favorite route runners in the league. I told him this, like, when I watched his tape in college, just, you knew that was going to translate. I thought he was the right pick at that spot. I thought he was the one that you looked at and you're like, worst case scenario, he's going to be a top 25 receiver. And I think we see that already. But one thing he did talk about is working on just the little things, and he's someone who's not satisfied, and I do think has a ceiling to be more of a top 10 to 12 receiver. I think he's going to have the opportunity to do that this year. So of all the players on the Saints, he is maybe at the very top of like who I'm looking forward to this year.
I feel like in talking to the players and seeing them out here this past week and a half, I have felt that there's a sense of urgency with this team. They're very focused, details, expectations, they're laying it all out there. Last year, first year with Derek Carr, still go over 500, but you don't make the playoffs, and I know that's something we want to get back to. Have you felt anything different being around this team and talking to some of the players? Yes,
especially the defense, but I think the organization in general, they don't want to be stuck in the middle. This is a team that doesn't have a history of being stuck in the middle, and I think the defense, especially talking to Tyron Matthew, talking to Willie Gay, like, they had an edge. We asked Tyron Matthew like one word to kind of describe him. He was just like attitude, and they're ripping heads off out there. They're letting the offense know it, and you are a little anxious that maybe these practices have been one-sided. I thought today was better for the offense, and at least what I've been reading about in terms of reports. But yeah, I think this defense has everything you need as long as they are healthy. There aren't many defenses that at all three levels have that level of leadership, experience, and some good young players sprinkled in with continuity. And let's be real, like, if they're going to win 10, 11 games, that defense has to be a top 3 defense. Like, the offense can be good enough, but if they're going to be where they want to go, I think the defense has to be like next level.
You speak about the energy on the defensive side, and linebacker coach Michael Hodges said that they have to be the coffee of the team. They have to be the guys that get everybody going first thing in the morning without the fans here, being that energy. And it all starts with Demario Davis. I think he was the one who actually came up with that term. We've seen him in the past years with like the Juice Boys and stuff like that. So he always gets them fired up. But on the offensive side, who do you think needs to step up?
It's often an offensive lineman. Obviously, Derek Carr's the quarterback of this team. Alavi and Shaheed are more chill guys.
Yeah.
Like Alvin Kamara, to me, is probably the leader of this offense in a way, him and Carr. And I think, and I've always been a Kamara fan, that he was better than the numbers showed last year. The line wasn't blocking for him. He was obviously playing through some injuries, but I think he still gets small through tight holes. He makes that first guy miss. I think because of his skill set, he can have a similar career arc to a Frank Gore, where it's like Frank Gore had that peak, but then when he was getting into late 20s, he stayed really good, sort of borderline Pro Bowl, big-time asset, leader, and one of the smartest dudes you've ever been around. It's one of the reasons why I like Kamara. I think he's that level of intelligence, football intelligence. So to me, getting Kamara right and him being a vocal leader, like that to me is the guy I look to, along with Carr, of course.
Yeah. Looking at the NFC South, a lot of changes across the board. Who do you think is, the dark horse to take it?
I'd say the Bucs. I don't know if that's dark horse because they won it, but I wasn't really feeling, maybe it's my Tulane background. I actually had season tickets one year watching Aaron Brooks and the Saints go like 8-8 back in the day. I'm not feeling the Falcons. I think the Falcons, like when everyone was saying, oh, Kirk Cousins is joining this Super Bowl ready roster, I was like, what roster are you looking at? Because this defense, talent-wise, to me, is bottom 5 in the league. They have new coaches on both sides of the ball. Cousins is coming off an Achilles. I think they'll be competitive. I think the Saints will be competitive, but I think people sleep a little on the Bucs just because they're not a lot of sizzle. But if you look at the top-end talent on their team, and they got a lot of players now making about $30 million a year and above, I actually think they have it over the Saints and the Falcons, and I'm not really including the Panthers in on this conversation. I like their coaching staff. Offensive coordinator, it's a new situation, but they won it last year. I know it was by tiebreaker, but just I'm giving the slight edge right now to the Bucs. I'm not calling them a dark horse, but I do feel like people kind of ignore them for whatever reason. Yeah,
they kind of just quietly came on last season and took the division. What's the biggest thing you miss about New Orleans?
Oh, the food.
Yeah.
Well, and the people, because that's the pace of just how people talk. You're listening to me talking. I should be chill. I'm in Southern California, but I think I'm just not naturally chill. But there was no way to live there, and for me, not to just like slow down a little bit. So my wife was a chef. We're very into food. We love spending time in New Orleans. So the combination of the food and then just slow down a little. I didn't try to take an accent or anything, but I did. Yeah. I did talk slower.
I think I heard Willie Gay say he's put on 5 pounds from eating there already, which I think is a little stretch, but
I think he was saying, he said when he first got there, like the first week I was there, I think he was saying he self-corrected and realized I gotta be careful. But that first week he was saying the Grubhub was just as good as going out to restaurants. It's like I haven't even lived there for an extended period of time as an adult, other than maybe going for a couple weeks at a time. So I can't imagine. I love it when I get back.
Yeah, you got to be careful with it. But it was great catching up with you. Hopefully we can see you at some point later on this season.
Yeah, keep living out my dream.
Appreciate Gregg. Team is back at it tomorrow, full pads. Then we'll have a lighter day Sunday in Shells. Pads back on Monday with the next day off, Tuesday. We'll be here every step of the way on NewOrleansSaints.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.